27, 29, 30, 31, 32. Do I have confirmation of audio in the feed? Checking. Oh my God, he's so handsome. Okay. Yes, you're good? Nice, thanks.
Welcome, whoops. Check, check. Welcome, everyone. Please find a seat. There's name cards or company cards on the table, but almost every single table has some extra seats, so open seating. Welcome, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a couple minutes. While you might see tables with cards for company name, please feel free to sit anywhere. Each table has extra seats, so it's just open seating. Where you find a seat, it works. Good morning, good morning. We're going to be starting in just a couple minutes. If you're looking for seats, while you might see some company names on the center of the table, please feel free to sit anywhere. Each table has some open seats, so you're more than welcome to find any open seat and use it for today. Good morning again. We have an amazing turnout today, so we're going to be pulling in some more seats. If you don't see seats, no worries. We are bringing them in. But wherever you see an empty seat at any of the tables, feel free to sit there. Any seat that's open, you are more than welcome to sit. Welcome, everyone. We're going to be getting going in just another minute or so. So we're pulling in some more chairs in the back. We had a wonderful turnout today with more guests than anticipated, so a happy problem indeed. But stay tuned, we'll be getting going in just 1 minute or so.
Capital Analytics is a unique multimedia platform that specializes in business intelligence on dynamic markets through our digital and print reports, high-impact conferences and events, as well as top-level digital content through our video platform, Invest Insights. We are unique in our approach in that over a 6-month research period, we interview over 200 local CEOs to put together the information that becomes the contents of each 200-page.
Good morning,
Our
everyone.
platform takes a deep dive into the
To avoid sounding like a school teacher, can I get your 2-inch voices, please?
and global investor, entrepreneur, and business person. But it is not only the annual
Good morning, good morning.
Capital Analytics hosts high
Please find a seat.
where executives convene to discuss the latest obstacles and how to best tackle them. Next, our subscribers stay up to date through our weekly
Good morning, everyone. Can I get everyone to take a seat? We're going to get going.
day-to-day
Thank
business,
you.
keeping our subscribers to the annual reports continually up to date. We also put a voice and face to the words in our Invest Insights video series. Hear perspectives on the markets we cover and why they are advantageous.
So apparently our video doesn't have any audio, so I will just begin.
And
Good
lastly,
morning,
the Capital
New
Analytics
Brunswick.
podcast.
Thank you so much for
Our
everyone for
listeners
being
take
here
on
today.
the road to stay
Elected
informed of the
officials,
latest business
keynotes,
insights from
moderators, panelists,
Capital
and
Analytics,
honored
we know
guests.
great words come
Welcome.
from great minds.
I'm Abby
And so
Maloney,
we
and I'm the
bring
president and
real
CEO of
insights
Capital
right
Analytics.
now.
Welcome to the first official launch conference of our Invest North and Central Jersey report, where we provide an in-depth analysis of what makes the region tick, where the opportunities are, and what challenges lie ahead. Thank you all for being here today in this beautiful venue. Thank you, Hellridge Hotel, for hosting us. I must admit that I'm particularly excited to be here today. While I flew here today from my home in Miami, I grew up in South Jersey and went to Rutgers just down the road. I can promise you this, that you might take the girl out of Jersey, but you'll never take the Jersey out of the girl. Aside from my excitement in being back in my old stomping grounds, this is an exciting time for North and Central Jersey. Between the investments the counties themselves are making and the investments that companies are logging, the region has become one of the nation's premier live, work, play destinations. Already contributing to the lion's share of the state's GDP, the North and Central Jersey region is gearing up for long-term growth on the back of its highly rated educational institutions and an inviolable and skilled workforce. From its industrial and manufacturing roots, the region has evolved into a modern economy. A host of Fortune 500 companies call the region home, and new sectors are emerging, with cannabis industry among those highlighted with great potential. But the bedrock of the modern economy are the high-tech, telecoms, healthcare, and pharmaceutical industries. In fact, in addition to hearing from our keynote speakers, Deputy Commissioner Shanti Narra from Middlesex County and Mayor Jim Cahill of New Brunswick, today's first panel will look at the pioneering healthcare and life sciences sector in the region and what's next for that ecosystem. In today's world, real estate development has become a hot ticket as the pandemic spurred a desire for open spaces, of which North and Central Jersey have plenty. But the landscape of real estate is also changing with inflation and higher interest rates. Our second group of panelists will tackle how developers and investors are reimagining the sector and the development options moving forward. To grow smartly, of course, requires innovation. Our third panel today will look at how organizations and institutions are adapting the innovative landscape that is apparent in almost all facets of business life. There are challenges, of course. A growing concern for everyone is the macroeconomic and geopolitical uncertainty we face, not just here in North and Central Jersey, but across the country. Inflation is rising, interest rates are up, and some are questioning if the Federal Reserve can engineer a soft landing for the economy. Further afield, the macro and geopolitical picture is blemished by the war in Ukraine, which continues to impact our supply chain availability and fuel and food prices. These are issues with regional overtones that we will need to monitor over the next year. Overall, however, when we look at the picture of North and Central Jersey, what we see is a great deal of optimism. At this time of change, we are now mostly accustomed to living with COVID, and it's particularly important to look ahead, leaning on the lessons that we've learned over the past 2 years. At Capital Analytics, like so many other businesses, we saw the pandemic as a time to change things up. Business intelligence is now more important than ever, whether it's print, digital, or conferences like these. First, we expanded our talented team at Capital Analytics and entered into 11 new markets post-pandemic: Pittsburgh, Nashville, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Raleigh-Durham, San Antonio, Dallas-Fort Worth, Jacksonville, Cincinnati, and of course, North and Central Jersey. We brought our economic reporting library to just under 20 metro areas. Next, our Invest Insights video platform has exploded. We brought our network of high-level CEOs in front of the camera to share with our audience their views and advice on everything from creativity in light of the pandemic, cryptocurrency and NFTs' long-term effect on banking norms, the Great Resignation, and retaining and attracting talent, and so much more. We expanded that video platform to a podcast so that our readers and our viewers can listen to this informative information on the go. In all our discussions with hundreds of business and political leaders over the past year, a common thread is how far we've come in such a short amount of time, how advances that were expected to take years have taken months. Today, North and Central Jersey is among the leading examples of what it takes to not only grow stronger, but to grow better. We have quite a lineup for you today. However, before our discussions begin, I'd like to thank our sponsors for today's events. Our gold sponsors, Alpha Business Solutions, Newark Symphony Hall, and United Healthcare Oxford. Our silver sponsors, Jersey Central Power and Light, Ocean First Bank, and USA Architects. Our honored sponsors, Blank Rome, Genmab, Greek Development, Russo Development, and Skorsinski Hollenbach. Thank you. It's with your support that we can continue to bring high-level speakers and content to North and Central Jersey. Some quick housekeeping. The reports that I keep on talking about will be available at the end of the event, so when you leave today's event, you will be able to leave with a copy. I should also note that we are also experiencing our own supply chain issues. We sent a number of boxes last week and they were supposed to arrive on Monday, and by Tuesday morning, they were still in Hialeah, Florida. And so we flew up with as many boxes as we could muster overnight, and so there might not be enough for everyone in the audience. Please leave your business card. We'd be more than happy to mail you a copy, and it should come as fast as USPS will take it. You might have noticed some table stands with some information on our social media channels. Please be sure to join the conversation today by tagging us and using the hashtag INCJ22Summit. And also, you can register complimentary to get access to all of our Invest library using the QR code on that same stand. So if you don't get to leave with a book in hand, you can still leave digitally with it in hand. And also today, for all the attendees, we are opening our whole entire library. So it's not just the North and Central Jersey, but it's all 18 markets that we cover. And so now, it is my pleasure to introduce our opening keynote, the Deputy Commissioner of Middlesex County, Shanti Narra. Shanti, please join me on stage.
Thank you, CEO Maloney, for the introduction and the opportunity to showcase our incredible county to this distinguished audience of regional business leaders. Commissioner Director Ron Rees unfortunately couldn't make it here today, which means I have the honor to join you for the kickoff of the first ever Invest North and Central New Jersey 2022 Business Conference in the heart of our wonderful county in the beautiful, dynamic city of New Brunswick. Middlesex County has been on a transformative journey over the last decade, centered on making strategic business decisions and investments that have a lasting positive impact on those who live, work, and play in Middlesex County. Here in our county, we have developed a strong financial strategy, which we have paired with a unique branding initiative. This is designed to provide us with financial freedom in order to invest back in our communities and increase awareness of our offerings throughout the region. Since embarking on this journey in 2008, the county has grown its surplus year after year, decreased our debt by more than $280 million, and maintained a coveted AAA bond rating, all of which allow for key investments that grow our economy and improve the quality of life long term, including investments in healthcare, education, transportation, arts, culture, and business. All of this is laddering up to our master economic roadmap, Destination 2040, which is spearheaded by the Department of Transportation and Office of Planning, and under the leadership of one of my colleagues, County Commissioner Charlie Kenny. The county envisions a future that connects the county to its neighbors, both geographically and culturally, through regional transportation projects and high-caliber performance arts centers. Changes to the educational landscape to nurture a new generation of entrepreneurships, inventors, collaborators, and contributors, and bringing access to cutting-edge healthcare treatment and state-of-the-art innovative spaces. In 2020, the county committed $25 million to the Jack and Cheryl Morris Cancer Center, which, when completed, will be New Jersey's first and only freestanding cancer hospital. The Cancer Center, which will be in the heart of New Brunswick, will transform cancer care through a combination of research, education, and patient care and will also provide opportunities for the students at Middlesex College and Middlesex County magnet schools through robust curricula and hands-on internship programming. And last year, the county was announced as a key partner in another one-of-a-kind project in the county seat, once again here in New Brunswick, the Hub. The 55,000 square foot facility will be a dynamic environment representing an investment in the future of innovation and entrepreneurship in New Jersey. And it will serve as the future command center for Data City, a living laboratory for autonomous technology. The county will be a member of the Hub's core partner team, joining Princeton University, Rutgers University, Hackensack Meridian Health, and the RWJ Barnabas Health System as anchor tenants of this facility. To foster the workforce of the future and nurture a new generation of learners, we are making a vital strategy, part of our strategy, to invest and design to strengthen and grow our college, our magnet schools, and our pipeline of talented, well-prepared workers who are ready to move or advance in all industries, especially the county's focuses: life sciences, autonomous education, technology, and food innovation. And I gotta apologize, I'm having a little trouble here because one of the things I've gotta ask you, if any of you are involved in making these, because I just got these reading glasses 2 days ago and they're not quite working well. So bear with me, please. So for a century, Middlesex County has been providing an award-winning education to students in a variety of education tracks, making us an academic destination for families around the region. We knew it was time that the names, brand identities, and reputations of our educational systems reflected the first-rate education that's already being provided. Both Middlesex College and the Middlesex County Magnet Schools have undergone a transformative brand and visual reimagining to better align with the county's own distinctive brand strategy and the region's economic growth plans. Middlesex College, formerly known as Middlesex County College, is undergoing a complete reimagining, and in the months and years to come, the campus will be transformed both programmatically and physically. The new name and identity reinforce the message that Middlesex County is a worthy first choice for prospective students, just as Middlesex County is the top destination for residents and businesses. In the same vein, the Middlesex County Vocational and Technical Schools, now known as the Middlesex County Magnet Schools, are entering a new era in its more than 100-year history with a new name and new visual identity to accurately represent an exceptional, specialized education that these schools offer to all county students. This new identity is reflective of the district's growth and evolution through an expansion of programs, offerings to include skill-based trainings and rigorous academic coursework. But beyond education, the county is collaborating with state and local partners to transform the transportation landscape within the county to allow for broader access within and beyond our borders, including via land and sea, and provide relief to our roadways. The North Brunswick train station, and just by way of note, I'm a North Brunswick girl, grew up there, so this is very close to my heart. The North Brunswick train station will be the first of its kind and is the first of its kind to be managed by a county in New Jersey. This will bring a train stop to the county along New Jersey Transit's Northeast Corridor, providing numerous benefits, including substantial relief to one of the state's busiest rail lines, reducing train traffic along Route 1, a major thoroughfare through the county, and attracting new revenue to the region. The county is also closely working with South Amboy and Carteret, and you may have seen news articles about this, both of whom are moving full steam ahead on developing ferry terminals that will connect our county directly with New York City. The addition of these ferry terminals will make Middlesex County one of the most connected regions in New Jersey, providing convenient mass transit options that will potentially take thousands of vehicles off our roadways during the morning and evening commutes. This will ease the strain on our existing infrastructure and reduce the impact on the environment. These truly forward-thinking projects embody the vision of Destination 2040 and our goal of developing and nurturing and improving the critical infrastructure needed to serve the current and future needs of county residents. And these new transportation routes will expand access for those in the greater region along the train and ferry lines to visit Middlesex, to enjoy our 19 park system, our hundreds of acres of open space, and our many performing arts centers. Knowing how valuable and essential the arts are for any community to thrive, we created the Middlesex County Arts and Cultural Trust Fund back in 2015. Since then, we've made strategic investments in the Carteret and Avenel Performing Arts Centers, the State Theater of New Jersey, New Brunswick Performing Arts Center, and others. And at NBPAC, which is across the street, for example, the county was a key partner in the development of the $172 million initiative, granting $6 million to the project. The NBPAC is transforming New Brunswick's downtown cultural arts center through its over 250 performances each year at the building's 2 theaters and rehearsal spaces, which house the George Street Playhouse, Crossroads Theater Company, the Rutgers University Mason Gross School of the Arts, and the American Repertory Ballet. Middlesex County invested $12 million in the recent renovations of the 100-year-old State Theater, which is actually county-owned, showcasing world-class artists from around the world, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. It is a significant economic driver for us. And to tie all these entities together through collaboration, we created the Arts Institute in 2020 to provide meaningful support to the arts, culture, folk life, and history of our county. Middlesex County's ability to play a leading role in the development of these projects is a testament to the long-standing, robust public and private partnerships we have at the local and state government level and with our business community, the same partnerships being celebrated here today. So I want to thank you all for coming to this exciting conference. I want to encourage you all to, of course, network, but also come and speak to the different representatives of our county offices, and enjoy New Brunswick when you have a chance. If any of you haven't been here, the mayor will be up here and he can extol the virtues of this wonderful city. But New Brunswick and all the surrounding Middlesex towns have so much potential, and we are ready to work with all of you. So thank you.
We have the very first edition of the Invest North and Central Jersey for Deputy Commissioner. You want to stay over here? Let's thank you, Deputy Commissioner Narra, again. Thank you so much. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the Mayor of New Brunswick, Mayor Jim Cahill. Please join me on stage.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Abby. Pleasure to be here. So let me first extend an official welcome to the City of New Brunswick to each and every one of you. And Shanti, as always, I enjoy your remarks, and much of what I talk about today will reflect upon the county as well, because you cannot have a better partner in any aspect of government life, not the least of which is redevelopment and the arts, than Middlesex County. So to the county, thank you very much, and don't be surprised if we touch on a number of the same topics, perhaps in a different way, but when there's something successful, we all try to take a little bit of credit for it, but none of you would be familiar with that. So for those of you who may not be familiar with our city or who are visiting it for the first time, you may be able to tell from the construction cranes that dot our city skyline that New Brunswick continues its decades-long evolution as a thriving global urban center. New Brunswick has been propelled forward with over $5 billion invested in the recent construction of new residential, retail, office, educational, and healthcare facilities. These redevelopment projects generate over $24 million in annual revenue to the city to financially support government and community services, and of course, our public schools. This has allowed us for the third year in a row to hold the line on taxes. And in fact, for the past 2 years, we've actually reduced our municipal taxes. These economic successes have fueled tremendous job growth in New Brunswick, with over 8,000 new jobs created for New Brunswick residents over the past 12 years. The city's unemployment rate is now 2.9%, lower than the nation and the state, which is virtually unheard of for an urban center. New Brunswick has much to offer. We are the home to Rutgers, the state university, and Johnson & Johnson, New Jersey's largest pharmaceutical manufacturer. With 2 major hospitals in Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital and St. Peter's Hospital, Rutgers Biomedical and Health Sciences, and the current construction of the Jack and Cheryl Morris Cancer Pavilion, tripling the size of the Rutgers Cancer Institute, serving as our flagships in our healthcare industry, New Brunswick has become the center of excellence in prevention, treatment, and research in the healthcare industry in our state and beyond. And I would suggest to you that it is no coincidence that the resurgence of New Brunswick has run a parallel course with the emergence and growth of our community. The arts have been a transformative force, serving as an economic engine and fueling the heart and soul of our community. From the State Theater, celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, to the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center, completed just a few years ago, our cultural center is award-winning and nationally acclaimed. They attract world-class performers and performances. They educate, entertain, dazzle, and inspire us, and welcome more patrons to our city to enjoy our art houses, dining at our restaurants, and enjoy our hospitality and nightlife. And just this week, the city's planning board granted approval of the New Jersey Innovation and Technology Hub, located directly across the street from the city's train station on the most traveled rail line in the United States, providing the opportunity for unique space, technology, and innovation ventures, corporate offices, academic and corporate research facilities, together with potential exciting retail and residential options. The initial phase of this development of the site, at 550,000 square feet and representing an investment of over $560 million, make that $650 million. Supply chain issue just came up. I just got it. When combined with projects already underway in New Brunswick, reaches a total investment of $1.7 billion and 1.2 million square feet currently under construction. The initial phase will also be an employment generator for our region, adding more than 2,000 permanent jobs and 1,200 construction jobs. And I hasten to point out at the very same planning board meeting earlier this week, it also granted approval to a new residential mixed-use project on Route 1 in the city for Russo Development, who I understand, Ed Russo, will be one of your panelists later today. It is a 720 residential unit development, a mix of rental and home ownership opportunities for townhomes. And there's a variety of retail space as well. And so we're excited to have them, and you can add those numbers into what I talked about before. So suffice it to say, New Brunswick prides itself in being a business and industry-friendly community. So I want to congratulate and wish the best of luck to the publishers of Invest North and Central Jersey 2022. And I want to thank all of you for choosing New Brunswick to host this launch event. And now it is my distinct pleasure to invite our first panel, Pioneering Healthcare and Life Sciences Next Steps for North and Central Jersey's Healthcare and Life Sciences Ecosystem, to the stage, as well as the panel moderator, Dee Marshall, CEO of Diverse and Engaged. And the panel includes Chris Palladino, one of my dear friends and partners, and fasten your seatbelts when Chris talks. There's a lot going on. All right, thanks everybody. God bless.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Got a mic.
I don't know. This doesn't sound like a bunch of excited people that, based on what we just heard about New Jersey, I would expect there'd be a little bit more excitement in the room. Maybe the guys coming to the stage. Hi there, Chris. Hi there, Paul, Brad. A little bit more exciting. One more time. Good morning, everybody. Are you excited to be in the Garden State, to live, work, play, and contribute to what is happening here? Yes or yes? All right, all right. And so we're going to have an awesome conversation here. Good morning again. My name is DC Marshall. I am the CEO at Diverse and Engaged, where we speak 3 languages: leadership development, workplace culture, and diversity and inclusion. And excited to be here and to have this conversation, just like a gentleman. Thank you. Excited to have this conversation. And so, at Diverse and Engage, we work with a lot of Fortune 500 corporations, but we rarely have these conversations around healthcare. So I'm excited to really talk to the 3 of you about pioneering healthcare and life sciences here. So I want to say welcome. I'm going to have you all introduce yourselves, and then we're going to have this conversation, and it's a bit of a 360 conversation around pioneering healthcare and life sciences. We're going to level set and take a look back. We're going to look at what's happening currently, and then we're going to ask you for future predictions and what is coming up for life sciences here. Is that okay? All right, so let's first have you all introduce yourselves. Chris, you want to start with you? I mean, folks should know you here, but
Microphone on. Ah, there we go. My name is Chris Palladino. I am the president of the New Brunswick Development Corporation, and I usually follow Mayor Cahill in any of his speaking engagements, which is usually difficult. So,
Good morning. Hi, I'm Paul Martin, CEO of United Healthcare's commercial business in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. You may have heard of United Healthcare, Fortune 6, and we're a global company, about 375,000 employees. We have over 7,000 employees in New Jersey, which you may not know. And we have in the commercial side of the business, we've got over 700,000 people carrying a United Healthcare ID card, and we are also in the Medicaid and Medicare business on the insurance side. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I'm Brad Bailey, the Senior Vice President and General Manager for Genmab, which is a fast-growing international biotech company, really known for a knock your socks off, meaning truly differentiated antibody medicines that several, Johnson & Johnson was mentioned earlier, one of their large products is fueled by our technology. And we're real excited for the growth that's happening. Similarly, not quite that large yet, but fast growing, and over 500 employees here in New Jersey, added 250 over the last couple of years, and looking to add almost 300 more in this calendar year. So thank you, and I look forward to speaking with you.
Awesome. All right. So let's start with the first question, which really is about some of the challenges that we've seen in the last few years. And the question is, how has some of Central and Northern New Jersey's challenges in the last few years bolstered the reputation that we have here of the medicine chest of the world? Can we just talk a little bit about that, those challenges, and how it is that New Jersey, Central Jersey, and Northern New Jersey has really become known as the medicine chest of the world?
yeah, I think, and these gentlemen are far more experienced and smarter than I am, and probably have a lot more to say. But the COVID experience is probably the greatest example of how the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health, the state's largest healthcare consortium, and Rutgers actually marshaled forces and figured out a way to be able to continue to provide care to obviously this horrific international pandemic, to be able to do it as safely as possible, to be able to get people in and out of the city. And then Rutgers, coming right out of the box, the research that was being done at Rutgers of how they were able to pivot, turn that to COVID, and be the first in the world to be able to create the saliva test. And how that actually, helped so many businesses, the healthcare industry, be able to kind of get back on its feet very quickly. So to be able to take, healthcare and, innovation and life science research, and for those people to all put their heads together. I mean, I was able to witness this firsthand, where you'd have doctors at the health system at University Hospital and researchers at Rutgers all getting together on Zoom calls to solve problems on a daily basis. So, terrible time, but really did maybe remind us of what is possible.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Paul, Brad, who wants to jump in?
Yeah, I think just sticking along that same theme and really seeing the partnerships in the way you kind of put down all of the barriers that might have existed before and have partnership in your DNA, and the innovative medicines, the innovative vaccines, diagnostics that were created, and working with partnerships. One of the largest vaccines, I think we all know, is the Pfizer-BioNTech. That's another partner of Genmab is BioNTech. We didn't really have a chance to speak with them during this time as much because they were quite busy with the vaccine, but seeing the organizations come together to find solutions quickly and innovatively that were extremely meaningful. And I think that's and it sits right here in New Jersey, the hub of a lot of all of that. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and New Jersey is the medicine chest, and I think it comes down to you can produce game-changing drugs, immunizations, but you have to make sure people are taking those meds. So from the United Healthcare perspective, we can't do that alone. We can try and make sure our members are adhering to the prescriptions that they get or seeking out immunization. So I think there's been a lot of great progress in working with providers and our members to find better ways to make it simpler and more affordable to actually get that medication or that immunization. And that involves things like connecting electronically with EMR records of provider groups so that when somebody's in the office and they're getting that prescription written, that doctor has information on how much it would cost for that member to actually fill that script. Making sure that any prior authorization is taken care of in advance of them going to the pharmacy. Also, there's a lot of expensive specialty meds that are life-changing for people, and a lot of times they don't know actually how to actually administer that drug if they're administering it at home. So there's been a lot of work through the online to help people have a virtual visit and instruct them, how do you take that medication, make sure they're adhering, and then monitoring that so that we can reach out to the patient or the doctor to make sure they actually took that medication. So it's all about adherence, affordability, convenience, and engaging with that member to make sure they stay on that regimen.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Be watching research scientists and healthcare administrators and university administrators pivoting from what sometimes is siloed business practices and to be able to work together and then take some of the things that we had seeded before the pandemic. On a regular basis, we were in contact with our colleagues at the University of Tel Aviv, who's going to be part of the initial opening of the hub, and to learn what was going on in Israel and how they were using some innovation, being able to share some things. That's going to pay dividends for generations, because once when people can have relationships, they can sign MOUs, but when they work together and are successful, we're going to go back to that.
Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And in fact, I'll continue because my next question was or is about some of the positives and the negatives I would say, takeaways over the past few years and how they've shaped the current landscape in healthcare and life sciences. And what I hear you saying is, one, working together, but two, an opportunity of things that had been seeded, but there needed to be a window of opportunity or perhaps urgency that created, the opportunity to work together. And so that's certainly a positive. Anything else would you add in terms of positive, negative takeaways that have contributed to the sector? Anything, gentlemen? I think you touched on quite a bit.
Yeah, I can start out. I mean, I think in the arena of behavioral health, there has been a lot more visits, significantly more, particularly because people have shown about 66% of our behavioral health therapy is done virtually. It can be really more convenient for a lot of members. So I think more people are getting care. One of the downsides of that too is just the supply of behavioral health providers. And so we've introduced a lot of different avenues for people to get help when they need it. Whether that's Talkspace for people who would prefer to access it that way, or we've got apps like a Sanvelo app that can help them deal with less severe issues. And it's really offering those avenues. And we've seen literally, I think it's over a 2,500% increase in virtual visits for all conditions. And that's expanding as well into things like PT, different kinds of coaching, primary care visits, and you'll see more expanding that space where people are actually accessing a primary care physician first virtually, and then getting their referrals into the healthcare system.
Similarly, and if you think about, I'll dovetail on the behavioral health piece, during a pandemic, you hear the words, or someone that you love hear the words, you have cancer. And we focus primarily on oncology. Imagine that at the time where institutions, it's limited, you're not supposed to go into public areas and space and going through the care. And I think the industry across the board, back to the partnership piece, found ways to effectively use technology, whether it be the virtual health work, the imaging that can be done more remote, that can now be transferred into offices, but really finding ways to support the patient. And we were fortunate enough this past year to launch our first medicine for patients with advanced cervical cancer. And with our partner CGen, we have many different avenues that were actually created and enhanced during the pandemic for this very reason, to support the patient and make sure that they do have access to the medicines and that as many barriers as possible are removed. And I know from a disparity perspective, we have a tremendous amount of work and effort there as well, and in certain communities were impacted greater, and I think this was a great opportunity for us to continue to drive that support, to make sure patients receive the medicines that they should, and the support and care that they should receive.
You know, on that subject of the diagnosis and treatment of cancer in the pandemic, I don't want to say fortunately or unfortunately, but it was what we were faced with. We designed the Rutgers Cancer Institute of New Jersey's next phase. You know, it's actually relatively remarkable. It's 550,000 square feet. It represents an investment of $750 million. It's going to employ 600 new employees, everybody from oncology surgeons to people working in the culinary component. Commissioner spoke about the partnerships with Middlesex County, and we want to make sure so many of those people who have opportunities for those jobs, let them be lab technicians, nurses, radiology technicians, or come from the local community. But we did this design during COVID. And to that extent, we actually positioned the hospital system in Rutgers in a way that they can use this building in two ways in a future emergency. So in the event that we have a COVID-like emergency, they could make the decision to totally silo this building. Mm-hmm. It is independent of the rest of the hospital. It has total redundant power system. 3 different ways it receives and produces electricity. All of the beds can be ICU beds and all have the circuitry in it, so you can have respirators in every bed. So they could make that decision in the future for the entire system, and their state is that this is where we're going to do cancer surgery, this is where we're going to do cancer treatment, we're going to isolate this building, we're going to bring people into our underground system to be able to come into the building and treat people and be able to keep that treatment as normal and as aggressive as possible and keep people safe. Flip side of that, they could also decide that they're going to turn this building in to handle a pandemic, because it has all the latest technology, all the latest circuitry, all of the latest equipment, and keep the rest of the hospital open. So we did learn something, not to necessarily change your design, but upgrade your design and to be able to design so you can isolate a building in the future so that you can deal with it in either, any way you decide to pivot.
That's a Jack and Cheryl Morris Cancer Center.
Yes.
And I think you already answered my next question, why it's important. I heard it's important for future, like pandemic, which I think there's been several pandemics within a pandemic. Why is it important for New Jersey or for New Brunswick, for that center to be here in New Brunswick?
I think when I started this job, I used to talk about why something was important for New Brunswick, and kind of understood why it was important for the Middlesex County region. But New Brunswick and its healthcare infrastructure and its research infrastructure is not only becoming important for New Jersey, but also for the entire broader metropolitan region. I mean, we are becoming truly an academic medical center. People who live, down the street on Saddam Street, who may not really have that opportunity to go to the NYUs or the Penns or the Columbias or the Vanderbilts when they need specialized care, are going to be able to get that in New Brunswick. And the fact that we are now building a standalone cancer hospital that is inpatient, it's surgical, it's radiology both, therapeutic and diagnostic, it's infusion, and 30,000 square feet of new oncology research in the city of New Brunswick, in Middlesex County, in the state of New Jersey. It creates opportunities for everyone in New Jersey to be able to get the most advanced cancer care, the only National Cancer Institute designated facility in the state, one of the few in the region, without having to go through the Holland, the Lincoln Tunnel, across the Walt Whitman Bridge. I personally have had this experience with my wife, And she chose to have her cancer care in New Brunswick. And one day, there was an accident on Route 1. What usually was a 25-minute drive to go get, to have her weekly treatment, turned into an hour and a half. And when we pulled up to the Cancer Institute, she said, can you just imagine if every week we had to do that and go to New York, the stress? So the fact that we have this kind of care in New Brunswick is a great thing for all New Jerseyans.
Thank you for that. How many of you in the room have had a relative or you yourself has had that situation where you've had to go for treatment? Because that's very real. If you've had a family member, a colleague, a coworker with a cancer diagnosis, so you understand what Chris is saying. Thank you.
I was able to go back to work in the afternoon, so.
Well, Chris, I don't think, your wife is not watching.
No.
You weren't supposed to be saying that. Don't say that. I'm going to go over to you, Brad. Let's talk about innovation. Brad, we talked a little bit outside, and I'm just happy to be able to chat with you here. You know, Genmab is known as a leading international biotech company, which I think is quite impressive. And it's a sector that has seen great acceleration. And, you know, I'm really interested in, what do you identify as the most exciting new innovation? Like, what are you seeing? What are you working on? And how could this change the future landscape of your business sector as a whole?
Yeah, thank you. And that's a great question, and excited to answer it. Just kind of thinking back as an analogy, like Intel technology powers everything today from computers to mobile phones. Genmab's antibody science, and mentioned the knock your socks off piece, truly created by Genmab, is powering many of the advanced medications that are currently being used today. This differentiated antibody science is an innovation, and a lot of that's due to the talent and the hub that we have here in New Jersey, with the majority of our team being research, innovation, and highly academic and scientific workers focused on not just the antibody, but then what can you do with that antibody in a very novel, precision medicine-like approach to be able to take each patient's individual needs, allowing our body's own immune system to work with the antibody to help treat the cancer and then and other diseases, which is the ability to do that is an innovation that is it's already being seen today, but we feel like the future in this bispecific space really holds a lot of promise. And again, the key is the talent and the ability to take the technology from whether it's AI or data science, even translational research, to really individualize the treatment and make sure that the trip with a loved one or a spouse is well worth it, and that we have every bit of advancement that we can moving forward. So that's
with the New Jersey Innovation and Technology Hub, which we've broken ground on and are well on our way, and we'll do the financing for an additional $731 million at the end of the year. You know, in some ways, I know several times we've talked New Jersey being the medicine chest of the year of the world, but large pharma in New Jersey and biotech in some ways kind of lost their way a while ago. New Jersey kind of lost its way. You know, people migrated out to the suburbs. They locked themselves behind gates. Researchers were researching, not collaborating. And we turned around and we found out that all of these companies in New Jersey had left to places like Cambridge and South San Francisco and San Diego, where their scientists were working in a different way. Kind of was a generational change. You know, you could overhear a conversation at a Starbucks in Cambridge amongst, talking about different therapies. And it could be people from different companies. You know, that whole thing of sharing ideas. I think 60% of the drugs that come to market didn't start at a big biotech company behind those walls. So we're trying to catch up. And I think the opportunity for the project that we're building downtown, it's 550,000 square feet. And it'll be one of the few places in the world where you're going to have translational research by a major research university. So Rutgers is in the process of hiring 80 new principal investigators, probably 800 research scientists that will work in wet and dry labs, doing analytical desktop research, doing wet lab research, having access to all types of extraordinary facilities in the same building where we're building a new medical school. So the next generation of of doctors that are going to be trained in New Brunswick are in a state-of-the-art facility where this type of research is going on. And then we top it off with bringing our partners together. Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas System, Rutgers, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Hackensack Meridian, Princeton University, Middlesex County, into a facility where that group of doctors who, physicians or researchers who may be able to make that pivot and kind of start to turn that into a company that's going to hire people. Now, 20%, of the companies that are started in Cambridge, they grow and hire employees within 20 miles of Cambridge. Where you start a company is where you end up growing it. So the thought is that we're going to create those laboratory co-working studio spaces where young people with a great idea, people at the end of their career who are leaving the pharmaceutical industry who didn't get to pursue something, and people who are doing academic research can actually start those companies, and they can thrive and they can grow here.
Exciting. Is this exciting? So exciting things for Central New Jersey, of course, and Northern New Jersey. And as I queue up this next question, it's about equitable solutions. I'm going to come over to you, Paul, but I'm going to level set. There's a lot of opportunity here. It's a great place to be. And so because of the work that I do, so again, at Diverse and Engage, we care very deeply about equitable opportunities. So for all people, right? That's why Abby invited me here. That's why my company, Diverse and Engage, is featured, because I think there was an intentional effort to have an equitable conversation or bring all folks to the table. And so at Diverse and Engage, we work with corporations to really support equitable opportunities, whether it's workforce, supply chain, CRG, or consumer and social responsibility, which is now ESG. And so which is why I appreciate this conversation. And you don't have to answer this question, but you should at some point ask the question, are you creating fair and equitable opportunity for all is part of my interest and my concern. And when I come over to you, Paul, no pressure, my friend, you all right? I couldn't help but thinking about equitable opportunities. In fact, so much so, this is just a point of personal privilege. I'm grateful to be here, but also because one of my favorite legendary business owners here, Avis Yates, she's going to be on a panel later today. She runs a $50 million business technology firm here, multiple acquisitions. And so glad that she's here, but also for others who are part of this equitable conversation, POC Stock, Steve Jones, just raise your hand, Steve. Equitable opportunities. I invited him here to be part of this conversation because I said, I'm sure there's going to be opportunity. Darius Boomer, who owns a technology firm here, based in New Jersey, based here. Darius, are you still here? But I said, come to this conversation. If Chris Palladino is going to be there, if the mayor is going to be there, there's definitely going to be opportunity in the room. And so that's always top of mind for me. Does that make sense? Just personal privilege to share equitable solutions. And so, Paul, as the nation becomes more focused on equitable solutions in healthcare and for diverse populations, everybody say diverse. Everybody say diverse. And so diverse populations, typically that's centered around whiteness. It just means anyone other than that. So we're talking about women, that's gender diversity. We're talking about race and culture diversity. We're talking about LGBTQ. We're talking about veterans. Any veterans in the room? Veterans in the room? Anybody neurodivergent in the room, neurodivergent. And so when we look at diverse population and the efforts to increase access to affordable care, that's having taken center stage, can you just talk about, from your perspective at United Healthcare, what do you believe are the most viable solutions in increasing access to cost-effective and equitable care for all? Everybody say for all. There you go, Paul.
All right.
No pressure.
Well, I mean, I love a cartoon that you may have seen that talks about equity. And, you don't give the same size bicycle to somebody who's 7 foot tall and somebody who's 4 foot tall, right? And I think that, the healthcare system needs a lot more work. So I just, at United Health Group, we're pretty humble. The healthcare system is very complex. There's a lot of barriers, and we got a ton of work to do. And it's about access and simplicity and affordability. And so companies need to invest in expertise to understand what the barriers are for healthcare. I'm in our commercial division, so we've invested a lot in our systems that train individuals to assist people who have different healthcare needs that require expertise. It could be the type of care that they need in terms of the providers that they seek. It could be the way they like to be referred to. It could be any other barrier, and it requires investment so that when that person accesses the healthcare system, that we are able to give them the services that they need. So if you have a parent who has an adolescent that needs behavioral health services, you need training and resources to be able to get them assistance to the right type of provider for that individual. If you have somebody who's looking, who's LGBTQ+, and they need assistance, we need to have information readily available for that individual to be able to assist that person for their specific needs. And same token, if you've got somebody depressed who's a diabetic, we need to get them very specific resources that are very different from somebody who calls in who's relatively healthy. So that differentiation requires a lot of different investment. Some of the things we're doing, I don't know if you've heard of our House Calls program, but we cannot do this alone as a healthcare company. So we partner with local organizations through our Catalyst program. We've got this nationally. It's in New Jersey as well. And we'll partner with local organizations. We'll do an assessment at a senior's house once they enroll in the program. We look at what are their barriers to health. We go through income, transportation, how they're living, do they have enough food, potentially make them aware of social services that are available to them so they can get what they need to get their health care. We've modified some of our benefit programs too to give them income to actually afford help them bridge getting that care that they need, whether it's child care or transportation. And we're doing the same thing in the Medicaid space. You may not be aware also, we've, I think the healthcare delivery system too is not very diverse. So United is funding about 10,000 scholarships for clinicians. We're partnering with different organizations to make sure that we have a more diverse healthcare system for the providers that are delivering the care, whether it's clinicians, therapists, you name it. And we're also partnering with historically Black colleges. We've got $10 million of scholarships in healthcare data analyst scholarships so that, the healthcare delivery systems needs to reflect the population, and it doesn't. And if we can invest to make sure that those delivering care understand and connect better with their patients, we're going to have a better healthcare system. And we also have invested $100 million nationally in underserved communities in housing. And what we do is we invest in real estate, and then we work with local organizations, whether it's a federally qualified health center or local organizations, to make sure people who are residing in that housing unit have access to health care. So, we've spread that out nationally, and we're going to continue to do that. So it's multifaceted. We have a ton of work to do, and we're going to continue to push on that.
This is...
Can we do a round of applause for Paul, though? That was really, seriously. Paul, thank you for that. Thank you.
As a white male who runs a company that is essentially run by women, and
That's a good thing, Chris.
For a long
Let's clap
time.
for that.
And-
Clap for that. Clap for that. Yes.
You know, this is hard work, and there's no silver bullet to it, and you have to kind of start at the beginning. So in as much as those, you know, we're looking for as many diverse subcontractors as possible, providers of technology, equipment, you know, to contact us at DevCo and make sure that you get on the list to get that chance. We do look back at a project and try to bring on board from a participation of companies, not only diverse companies, but local companies, Middlesex County companies. You want to keep that money in the community because it works exponentially. But really starting at the beginning, working with the mayor, we have several important programs that are going to pay off hopefully over the next decade. The first one is our training to hire program, where we have already put in our cancer center project 30 men and women, mostly almost everybody from the broader community, but about the majority of them returning citizens who are some of the hardest people to employ, who do need a little extra care, a little extra training, and they're now working on our job sites or working for our subcontractors. And we'll initiate another class. We've got a firm that does, like the name escapes me, who does the training, and we've been very successful. It's hard. People go back to prison. People overdose. People have, things happen. You have to take that kind of extra care. We are working again also with the city at the teenage level, as with PRAD, and being able to do a leadership training in summer jobs where we pay 40 teenagers in New Brunswick, and they do their jobs around a social justice issue. Food insecurity, healthcare, where they're actually visiting senior citizens, doing those kinds of things. So that's an important thing. And then there's the P-TECH program in the New Brunswick schools, where we have students who are mostly, we think, headed toward engineering degrees, and they're getting the ability to go to Middlesex College and get a Middlesex College degree within like 5 years of starting high school. And they are being mentored by a number of our contractors and subcontractors and being brought onto our job site and to doing those things. So you can't wave a magic wand, but we live, I think, and Commissioner will tell me if I'm right or wrong, one of the most, if not the most diverse counties in New Jersey, and the fact that we are going to prepare our citizens to work in our projects, we hope will go a long, long way.
Thank you for sharing that. Round of applause for that. Thank you, Chris. We were definitely interested in that, and not surprised about not just the work that you currently mentioned, but that you have done for many years here as a staple. So thank you for that. Paul, I see you give me the eye here, Paul. Did you want to add something else? I'm impressed.
No,
By the way, I am, I grew up in New Brunswick. I went to New Brunswick High School, by the way. Yes, clap for that. Yes. Yes, that's right. Born of a single mom and grew up here. And so really grateful to be here and have the pleasure of running a company. So we're getting on this supplier diversity list. Steve, Avis, we're getting on this list. And all of the others here in the room, we are getting on the list. We're excited to be a part of this and to come home. So I'm going to wrap up where we've talked about, or we've done sort of level setting and a look back. And then we've talked about some of the exciting work that is happening from the three of you from your perspective. And so we want to wrap up with talking about the future. And so let's go there. Let's look to the future in terms of potential. Some of it has already come out, but if you think about what are some of the subsectors within healthcare and life sciences industries do you believe hold greatest potential for growth within northern and central New Jersey? And what would capitalizing on this potential mean for the region's economy? So whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll take that first, and I think they've handled that really well, discussing the staple and the foundation of the larger organizations, especially in the pharma and biotech industry in New Jersey, moving forward. From a New Jersey perspective, I think it's great to hear and very encouraging the work that you just shared moments ago. But it's great to see a company like Genmab, a small biotech startup over the last 5 years, now growing, over 1,500 employees globally, all being focused and funded and driven and delivered straight out of central New Jersey, which is really exciting to see that. And I think to continue to create this incubator-like approach of that thought and the innovation, and even taking off a tie and not being so big company-like. Sometimes we have this conversation in the debrief. It's not just that, but I've spent many years in both New York and New Jersey working. Also spent a few years in Cambridge, and that vibe is not only can be replicated here, but can be even bettered here, because the talent pool in the hub in New Jersey is tremendous. We want to continue to incubate it and grow, but I think biotech specifically has the opportunity to make a tremendous difference, transforming patients' lives and ultimately making diseases and areas like oncology and other very difficult to treat diseases chronic as compared to what we're dealing with today. So yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And for the next company like theirs that gets founded, hopefully here in the hub, and grows in Middlesex County. And I was with a CEO the other day of a pharmaceutical company that did a wide variety of research and consulting for the larger pharmaceutical industry. And for us to be able to create opportunities for those young chemists and biologists and ethicists, who come out of Rutgers, and give them the opportunity to stay home. And for us not to have some kind of talent drain where young people are having to leave the state to find the type of job that they want, for them to stay in New Brunswick, to stay in Middlesex County, to stay in the state of New Jersey, we're all going to be better for it. And it's not necessarily creating the opportunity. I think sometimes we all think that we can solve these things. It's creating the ecosystem and the opportunity for people to find their way. People in these industries know a lot more about this than we do, and just give them the tools, give them the relationships, give them the places to be able to grow the economy.
Yeah, that's good. Paul?
Yeah, and we've talked about its continuing theme this morning. It's about partnership, and you can't get anything big done alone, and it really requires collaboration, whether you're addressing health equity or getting a better patient outcome. I personally think the biggest opportunity that we have in the healthcare space are for companies that are able to connect patients and consumers with clinicians and a health insurance company or any other company that can help facilitate getting better care quicker in the right setting. CPI is at 9% right now. Healthcare costs are skyrocketing and will skyrocket just purely due to inflation over the next couple of years. And if we don't do something to get people healthier quicker, that's the opportunity that I think is the greatest. So, we're looking to partner with any kind of innovative company that can actually connect with a patient, have them engage, and then access the right resources and get the right advice easily. And it has to be simple. I mean, again, I said it before, we're pretty humble. The healthcare experience is not fun. It's too complex, it's too expensive. People need simplification. If you think about your online shopping experience, that's not healthcare. So we've got a long way to go from initial entry point to simply understanding what's available, what's the best option at the lowest cost, and then being able to connect somebody so that they're engaged, they take their meds, they get the right care, and sometimes that means care at home. That's the biggest opportunity that I see, and that will help us all get to a healthier state, and we'll do it more affordably.
Thank you, gentlemen. And as we wrap, I will add the future and what I shared in my interview in Invest New Jersey, and the future as it pertains to workforce, as it pertains to the great resignation. It is not the great resignation, it is a great awakening, and it is a workers' market. And if we want to do, as Chris mentioned, we want to create the ecosystem and opportunities for good, great, and amazing talent to stay here, then we have to think about diverse and inclusive cultures, workplaces where people can go to work and feel psychologically safe. Psych safety is a big interest and concern and your greatest risk if you are an employer here. And so in thinking about the future and thinking about retaining and attracting the best talent to contribute to innovation, think about diversifying, but not just diversifying your workplace, but creating spaces of inclusion. Think about diversifying your supply chain. Think about how you contribute to giving back and some of the great models that we have had here. And I think we will all be and continue to be a great place to invest in a great central and a great northern New Jersey. And so we are complete today. Again, we're here with Chris, Paul, Brad. My name again is DC Marshall, Diversity Engage. And as we take our seats to make room for the next panel, why don't you give our panelists a round of applause for this, the pioneering healthcare and life sciences. And as I take my seat, is this not a great place to invest, Northern and Central New Jersey? Yes or yes? So if I say invest, you say Jersey, invest, invest. If I say invest, you should say it a little bit louder and be excited that we're here. Invest, invest. Thank you. And my name is DC Marshall. I approve this message.
I don't know if I can match Dee's energy and enthusiasm, but let's give panel one another round of applause, please. And so I would like to welcome our panel presenter for panel two to stage, Marlene Borusso, the Director of Sustainability and Wellness for USA Architects, Planners, and Interior Designers. Marlene, can you please join me on stage?
Good morning, and thank you for having me today. My name is Marlene Borusso, and I'm an architect and the Director of Sustainability and Wellness for USA Architects. I'm very excited to speak with you about growth in New Jersey. With 21 years of practice, I have a diversified architectural portfolio with experiences in academic, behavioral health, corporate, justice, and commercial market sectors. Architecture is an indicator of growth, and it helps shape our communities, structure our landscapes for generations to come. Architects create places for people to live, play, and work through new construction, expansion, renovation, reconstruction, and adaptive reuse. The professional responsibility of an architect is protecting the health, safety, and welfare of building occupants. For a long time, professionals evaluated this responsibility on how to maintain life in case of fire. Both the rise of mass shootings and the arrival of a global pandemic, the definition of safety has expanded. People spend 90% of their time indoors, and we have learned that the built environment is the first line of defense for health and safety. We also know that buildings can wear heavily on our natural ecosystems and exhaust our natural resources. When you think about sustainable design, you typically think about investments in solar panels, geothermal heating and cooling, green roofs as methods to save energy. But the largest cost to businesses over time are its employees. Viewed over a 30-year period, initial building costs account for only 2% of the total, while operations and maintenance account for 6%, and personnel costs total 92%. Not to mention the cost of turnover averages 30 to 35% of an employee's annual salary. An investment in well-building and sustainable initiatives are an investment in people and have been shown to attract and retain employees and tenants, and as well and reduce energy costs and long-term O&M costs. A high-quality indoor environment focuses on clean, fresh air, well-lit spaces, and a welcoming environment. A high-quality indoor space can increase productivity, increase presenteeism, reduce absenteeism, and promote improved health for employees. So how do you do it? Clean air is the most critical component to our health, and we know that enhanced filtration and increased ventilation reduce the spread of viruses indoors. Building owners can choose enhanced ventilation systems, which can remove potential harmful materials from the air and reduce the spread of airborne illnesses. Indoor air quality can also be degraded by volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. These are fumes that off-gas from paints, coatings, finishes, furniture, and cleaning products. These materials can irritate the respiratory system and the neurological system, so we'd like to eliminate those from being used within buildings. Exterior windows offer opportunities for natural ventilation, but when coupled with prime solar orientation, can provide deeply daylit spaces. The additional daylight reduces energy costs by reducing the need for artificial lighting, but it also stimulates the body's 24-hour circadian cycle. Access to daylight promotes alertness and focus during daytime hours and increases more restfulness during nighttime hours. The exposure to views to the outdoors and even images of nature can help reduce stress, speed up healing and recovery, boost positive feelings, and increase the ability to focus. Developing buildings and locations that are supported by a greater network of diverse services, such as retail stores, office buildings, schools, places of worship, community centers, doctors' offices, hospitals, and public transportation, encourages a more active lifestyle, and it also provides people easy access to services they need while reducing carbon emissions from unnecessary vehicular traffic. New Jersey offers developers and business owners opportunities for growth that are not available everywhere. New Jersey is a bridge between two larger economic centers, New York and Philadelphia, and has one of the best public school systems in the country. It's also integrated into a global marketplace, as it has a home to many multinational companies, the Port of New Jersey, and Newark Airport. More importantly, the New Jersey government supports sustainable growth through programs such as the Aspire and Emerge program that are currently available. Aspire is a gap financing tool that supports strategic commercial, mixed-use, residential real estate development projects that encourage growth and strengthening of communities. The Emerge program encourages economic development in priority sectors and in targeted communities across New Jersey. These tax incentive programs provide tax credits for investment in private capital to create high-quality housing or new good-paying jobs. These programs also require sustainable design initiatives to ensure that these construction projects have a long-lasting positive impact on the state. USA Architects has had experiences with similar incentives. We have some boards at the front of the room here if you're interested, but these are some of the buildings that we've worked on that have used these incentive programs to help fund their construction. Buildings such as the Triad 1828, a new LEED Silver office building in Camden, Holtec, a LEED Gold campus comprised of a manufacturing plant and office buildings, and the adapted reuse of the Victor Records office building by Eastern Metal Recycling all took advantage of these past incentives. The validated documentation of the increased ventilation, enhanced filtration, touchless elevators, touchless door access, and clean materials offered occupants security in returning to the workplace after that unprecedented lockdown of 2020. Since the development of these buildings, Camden has seen significant housing growth as a direct result of these projects. I don't want to take too much more time, and maybe I rushed a little bit through what I wanted to say, but really thank you for listening to me. If you want to talk about any of these initiatives, I'm very passionate about sustainability and wellness in buildings. I really think that people are the key component of all new construction, and so really taking the time to focus on what that means for each different building type is really important. So please feel free to reach out to me, and really thank you for including me in this event.
Thank you very much, Marlene. I'd like to welcome the second panel up to the stage, Growth Mode, Reimagining the Business of Real Estate and Market Development Options. John Korn, can I please welcome you to welcome your panel?
Do you want to sit there or stand here either way?
I'll start here. Thank you, Abby. My name is John Korn. I'm a partner at Blank Rome in their Princeton office. It gives me great pleasure to call up our very distinguished panel. We have 30 minutes and we have a lot to cover. Dee set a very high bar for a moderator. I don't think I'm going to have the same level of audience participation, but maybe as we get into it, maybe I'll do a little, audience participation, but we'll see. But instead of me going through the specific intros, let's go through the panel, and we're missing Tanisha. Okay. Tanisha, why don't you start introducing yourself, and then we'll go down towards David.
Sure, and I hear I have the funky mic. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanisha Nash-Laird. I'm the president and CEO of Newark Symphony Hall. I've been there not quite 4 years. My background is economic development and arts. I was a city and state official for economic development. I was the municipal director of economic development and housing production in Trenton, New Jersey. Doug Palmer. Can I switch? Great. You can hear me much better now, right? I was the director of economic development and acting director of housing production under Doug Palmer. That's a long time ago. And Governor Corzine, again, another long time ago, appointed me to the Urban Enterprise Zone Authority. I was one of the 2 public members there. And I'm excited to be here. Is there anything else that you want me to?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Morning. I'm Ed Russo. I'm a principal at Russo Development. We're a family-owned real estate firm based in northern New Jersey. Our company was started by my father in the late 1960s, and our business is primarily focused on mixed-use redevelopment throughout the New York metro area. Northern and central New Jerseys are really we consider to be our home market. And we also do a fair amount of commercial development, industrial warehousing, and data center development being our primary non-residential businesses. And I'm pleased to be here today.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Donald Pepe from the law firm of Scarinci Hollenbeck. We're a mid-sized regional law firm dedicated to meeting the diverse legal needs of the business community. I'm the chair of the real estate practice group, and Ed and I work very much in the same world. Proud to be part of probably 5 of the top 10 redevelopment projects going on right now in the state. Ed's probably got the other 5. Happy to be here. Really was looking forward to this, and I think so far it's been a great event.
Okay, David.
Hey, Dave Greek. I'm a managing partner at Greek Development. We are a fully vertically integrated industrial real estate development firm. We do everything under one roof, from design to entitlements. We have in-house general contracting, and then we lease and manage the buildings after they're done. Manage about a 18 or 19 million square foot portfolio in New Jersey, Eastern Pennsylvania, Delaware, and New York. And we've been around just about as long as the Russo companies have. I'm the 3rd generation in the business, and we're very excited to be here today.
Thank you all. So let's get started. What I find really remarkable is that even sitting for the last hour, there's already so many synergies among the panel and among what you heard from the keynote speakers. Certainly heard the mayor and the commissioners talk about how important how important arts are to the economic of a community. And so we're going to go into detail on that, Tanisha. But to start, this is a question for the entire panel. What would you identify as some of the key differences between the pre-pandemic economy and where we are today with regard to your respective businesses? David, you want to start with that?
Definitely. Since we're focused on the industrial space, which to clarify is distribution centers, manufacturing centers, warehousing, more or less, you can predict that the pandemic had a massive impact on our business in both good and bad ways. So the market obviously exploded for e-commerce during the pandemic,
shopping had to be done at home. This is a trend that's been ongoing for a long time. But we believe that during the pandemic, it accelerated that trend by somewhere between 7 and 10 years. So the adoption of online shopping and the adoption of different forms of online shopping, grocery being a big one that a lot of people engaged in for the first time during the pandemic. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that had never ordered groceries online until you were forced to. And some of that behavior, grocery and beyond, is quite sticky. So once people try it once, they continue to like it, and maybe they're not using it full time when they don't have to, but it's a tool that they go back to and reuse. So this has obviously shifted a lot of the business from brick and mortar retail into what we build, which is distribution centers and warehousing. Additionally, a lot of labor during the pandemic has shifted from retail into warehousing and distribution. So the demand in this space has absolutely, it was already a very tight market in New Jersey, and during the pandemic, it got significantly tighter. Lease rates increased a record amount. The amount of building going on stayed pretty steady, and we're continuing to try and find new projects and new land because we believe the demand is still very, very deep for well-located, well-built industrial space in New Jersey and Pennsylvania.
So, you know, we've seen the impacts of the pandemic, both internally and externally with respect to the business that we're doing. Internally, we've aggressively embraced the remote work profile. We were all forced into it for a time where our offices closed up, but more and more law firms are going back to insisting that their attorneys go to the office 5 days a week. We've taken a different approach. We're actively embracing work from home. It's allowed us to both sustain and increase our equity and inclusion of people who need a less traditional work format. I think what comes to mind mostly there is single women. It provides an outstanding opportunity for them to be home with their children. One of the colleagues I work most closely with enjoys that benefit. And we've been hugely successful in maintaining our products and in maintaining our services remotely with respect to the attorneys. Now, it's unique because it's easy to measure an attorney's productivity because we do it by the hour. So there are challenges that we don't face that other industries do. But much as it was noted that a lot of the retail has gone now online, you know, those retail locations have to be repurposed. And we're seeing this more and more. We're involved in several malls throughout the state, 3 where we're looking to redevelop, where we're going into a lot of medical office space. We're going into a lot of retail, a lot of residential space that's replacing what were huge revenue generators for municipalities, these large mall sites. And we're seeing that with office complexes as well, as more and more companies need smaller footprints to service the needs of their customers and clients. Those spaces are getting on the market and they have to be redeveloped. We're seeing a lot of activity in that area.
And so, Ed, when you answer the question, clearly you must be dealing with the remote working phenomenon and adjusting your multifamily projects to meet that, I would expect.
No question. Residents are spending so much more time at home now than they were 24 to 36 months ago. And the effect of that is, it's not just the things that naturally come to mind, like, you know, people want larger spaces, they want, you know, larger apartments, they want work areas in their home that maybe were less important, especially in urban areas where you would naturally build smaller apartments a couple years ago. It's all of those things, but it's you know, the less obvious differences and preference changes that we're now struggling to accommodate. And I'll give you one example. We have you know, the guest policy that communities allow was never something that got a lot of attention pre-pandemic, but now not only do you have residents spending more time at home, the number of guests that they want to be able to have visit has changed dramatically. And buildings, whether it's the parking facilities or the amenity spaces, no matter how generously sized they were or how ambitious they were a couple years ago, we're starting to find that with more guests and more visitors, it's becoming increasingly difficult to accommodate not just our residents, but their family members and friends. So that's, you know, one small example of, you know, something that's really affected, I think, our industry and how we think about design. David made a couple interesting points about the warehouse market, which, our company for 30 plus years, between the late 60s and early 90s, that's all we built were warehouses. And it was always a, very slow and steady market. Never got too hot, never got too cold, just sort of bumped along. And then in the last 4 to 6 years, the growth has been incredible, and the pandemic just accelerated that. And it's gotten to the point where land is so scarce, land prices are so high, vacancy rates are so low. I mean, maybe 2%. They might even be lower than that in certain areas. That so much supply has been brought to market to try to meet this increasing demand that communities have started to take a little different approach to approving warehouses. 10, 15 years ago, even in the shorter term, pre-pandemic, let's say, you could get a warehouse approval fairly easy in New Jersey, and it was getting residential projects approved was always the big challenge because of school-age children and in traffic and all of the the impacts that come with new housing. And now it seems like, at least from our experience, the sentiment has shifted where there's much bigger awareness now of the effects of these large warehouse facilities. So that, I would say, post-pandemic is certainly a big difference than what we saw even just a few years ago.
So Tanisha, how has the pandemic impacted the Newark Symphony Hall, and in particular the project that you're undergoing?
Mike, thank you. So some of you might be wondering, why am I on the panel? I run a symphony hall. Newark Symphony Hall was opened in 1925. It's one of the largest and oldest performing arts centers in the state of New Jersey. And I'm here because we are planning a major renovation and revitalization of our venue, both in the facility. It's pre-inflation, we had it priced at $50 million. I'm not sure, maybe I should talk to some of the developers here about how much I should estimate now. And also our programming. And so I'm gonna go into the aspect of that and how they affect that first, actually, because before the pandemic, one of the things that I had observed in, I guess now I was first appointed to a position at a city hall in 2005. In my 15 years, I had seen a lot of what I would call inequitable practices in terms of economic development. And so mostly what I was talking about when I took this role is how we were going to be inclusive in the community, and how we were going to make sure that this happened with the City of Newark residents and not to the City of Newark residents. And I will say that the pandemic actually helped that conversation. Right? I think the inequities that were illuminated by not just COVID-19, but institutional and structural racism with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor really assisted that people understood why, when I said we're going to be creating 500 construction jobs and contracting opportunities for 50 small businesses, and I want to make sure that that is the local people, and I don't usually have to say black or brown because people know Newark is predominantly black and brown folks, and that we're going to be training people for those jobs, not just, which is why I love, Chris Palladino is actually one of the first people that I met when I started doing economic development. So I'm actually a fan of Chris, and I know he's been doing this training work as well. And specifically in historic preservation, which I've since found is something that is important to do for the field as a whole, not just for black and brown folks. So during the pandemic, we've actually raised more money for our efforts during the pandemic than before the pandemic. So that's one of the ways that it has positively affected us. The other way that things changed is we were shut down by an executive order. And so I have two board members here. I have actually the chair of our facilities and capital improvement. So I'm gonna shout you out, so you have to raise your hand. That's Jose Ocasio, who's an executive at Prudential. And I have the president and CEO of Newark Regional Business Partnership, Chip Halleck. I don't know if he's still in the room. He is still in the room. And so I'm sure board members were like, how are you going to make money during this time? And we pivoted to working with film and television. And so we increased actually our earned revenue by more than 200%. We were the home of a television show, a nationally broadcast television show called America's Big Deal that broadcast live on USA Network. And it was a deal we cut with NBC Universal. So you know, I know it negatively impacted a lot of things, and I don't want to diminish that, but I will say that it made the opportunity to be innovative and to think through. And now there is a whole huge Lionsgate project that has been proposed in Newark, and I think a lot of us making money not just with America's Big Deal, but another television show, Wu-Tang: An American Saga, used us as a place. So it really changed us in that we had to be even more innovative, and I think that was a good thing.
Yeah, certainly. I think New Jersey is going to be becoming a film and TV hub. I think with the Lionsgate project, and I think Fort Monmouth as well. I may have to pivot my career from law to something else. But I want to talk about Newark, because I mean we really haven't spent that much time this morning talking about the largest city in the state, and we talked a lot about New Brunswick, rightfully so. But Ed, I think I saw on your website that you are considering a project on Broad Street, multifamily. Is that correct?
We have a project that's just north of the Broad Street station, it's commonly referred to as the Lower Broadway, Upper Broad neighborhood. That's now under construction. It's mixed use. It's around 300 apartments with ground floor retail space, and there's a community gallery as well facing the Broad Street frontage.
And how important was it for you when you made that decision to invest in Newark to look at what was going on, you know, at Tanisha's organization, at New Jersey PAC? How important was this idea of trying to make Newark a 24/7 city as far as your decision to invest?
It was a huge factor. I mean, Newark has become a very attractive place to work and, you know, and to live. And to the city's credit, there's been so much activity in the downtown, right around Gateway and Newark Penn, you know, in the vicinity of the Rock and Pru's headquarters. But they've made it a big priority to create growth and investment throughout the city. The Lionsgate project is a great example. I mean, that's a $125 million investment with, you know, 800 or 1,000 new jobs being created, and it's on the far southern edge of the city in a place where you wouldn't normally, you know, you haven't seen as much attention, as much investment. And I think the city deserves a lot of credit for that. They deserve a lot of credit for their policies about inclusion and equity. I could say firsthand, you know, our project took 3.5 years to get through the approval process, which, you know, was longer than, you know, we were expecting, but we understood why. I mean, Newark was very diligent about not only all the things that a typical city wants to understand in a new development project, right? All the real estate impacts, but they were, you know, very concerned about affordable housing, very concerned about local hiring, apprenticeship programs, and they weave that into their approvals and their agreements with developers like us, because they, you know, they have a vision for the city that just doesn't represent new development. It represents, you know, a very inclusive future. So we're very, this is our first project in Newark, so we're not Newark experts, but we've built in a number of the surrounding communities like Harrison and Kearney and the city of Orange. And I would say that, you know, Newark has a very, very bright future.
Very good. I know people are here to hear about the projects. Frankly, I'm a project junkie. So with trepidation, I do ask a question of the lawyer on the panel. And this is the question. A couple things. Number one, can you speak a little bit, Don, to the red tape involved in some of the projects, and do cities like Newark and other municipalities hurt themselves with regard to projects by making it more difficult to get to the finish line? And also, sort of addressing another question, anything that's happening right now as far as regulatory and legislative developments that this audience should know of and should be on the radar for the future?
Sure. Well, you definitely put me on the spot there, because you're asking me to let out all of the secrets. Yeah, development work is a challenge. It's not for the faint of heart. There are a lot of hurdles to overcome, and not the least of which because every municipality, every city tends to be different and to have different influences. Listen, I find development money is very cliquish. It goes where it's welcome, and it goes where the other money is going. So New Brunswick, for instance, and you heard the mayor talk about this, they're welcoming development, and they can support it with things like long-term financial agreements, pilot agreements that make projects happen. Other cities take a different approach. They want to stem growth and they want to stem new projects, yet they also want the affordable housing that goes along with it. And so you're really defeating market purposes there. The more units you have on the market, the more likely you're going to have more affordable units. That's my opinion, and I think that's borne out. What's on the horizon with respect to legislature? Well, I think everybody's on pins and needles about the flood hazard rules. They're going to be coming out soon. They were supposed to be out a couple of months ago, and it could have major impacts on projects. We don't know as we sit here right now what's going to be grandfathered, what's not going to be grandfathered. So you could have invested millions of dollars in developing a project just to find out that it's 2 feet too low. And that's a major concern for all developers that's going on right now. You know, some of the other things that were more beneficial, I think the EV rules that recently came out, they offer an opportunity. I mean, Ed said he needs more parking, but I think my experience is developers don't like building structured parking. So this provides you an opportunity to decrease the number of parking spaces that you have to have by up to 10%, just by providing electric-ready EV spaces. And it's good for the future because that's, you know, that's where the cars are going, I think. So those are two things to watch.
Great. I think we're running short on time, but I want to ask one question of David, then I'm going to ask a question of the entire panel. David, I think you talked about, you know, what's driving the growth in the industrial market. You talked about how difficult it is to find suitable land in New Jersey. One thing that you have done from an adaptive reuse standpoint is you've targeted the Nabisco plant in Fairlawn. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that project and how sort of the fundamentals have driven you to look to sort of this creative use of the land?
Sure, and I'd say the Nabisco project is pretty exemplary of a lot of what we do, especially in North Jersey. Ed said it earlier, you know, we're not making new land, so we have to find creative ways of reusing, you know, defunct facilities and redeveloping them. And thankfully, because of the trends I talked about earlier and the rent growth I talked about earlier, we're now getting to a point where a lot of these sites that have sat vacant and have serious environmental conditions that need to be remediated are becoming economically viable to redevelop. And that's exemplified in one of our largest projects in Linden. It's a 4 million square foot park that sat vacant for almost 25 years, has serious groundwater soil contamination. I could talk for a whole panel on all the different things we had to do there to get that developed. But economically, it's been very successful. And it's created a lot of benefits to the community as well by creating jobs, creating tax revenue, you know, creating what was one of the most visible sites in New Jersey right along the side of the turnpike into a flourishing economic center. We expect the same thing will happen with our acquisition of the Mondelez plant in Fairlawn. We acquired that last year. We paid quite a big number for it. And we have a lot of confidence in the location, the town, and our ability to redevelop that site. This is, for those of you unfamiliar with it, you might recognize a picture. It's one of the most visible industrial sites in New Jersey. It has an 8-story silo that was used to store flour and sugar with a giant Nabisco painted on top of it. So it's a pretty unique facility. It's about 700,000 feet. They baked Oreos there for almost 60 years. So the local residents are already, I've heard it way too many times, but they miss the smell of the baking Oreos. And unfortunately, that's not something we plan on bringing back. But what we are going to do is to basically completely remediate the property, demolish this old structure, which was built in several phases, starting in the 1940s and 50s, and really is a very custom-built facility for baking Oreos. And since there's only one guy that bakes Oreos, we'd like to build a more adaptive facility that can be used by a lot of different uses in the future. So you mentioned developers don't like building parking decks, but that is something we will be doing there because of the amount of parking that comes along with a lot of our uses. And that's been a big change that e-commerce has actually brought into the industrial space. It's something that's great for communities because the density of employment within a warehouse or manufacturing center today is easily close to 10 times what it was 20 years ago. And that's just because of the velocity and the different types of goods moving through the warehouse. So these uses come with a lot of parking, a lot of employees, and you know, ultimately what we will do at the Mondelez site is to take an old, unleasable, unusable 700,000-foot facility with serious contamination both in the soils, in the building itself, and in the ground, and completely remediate it, demolish it, and build a brand new distribution facility that will be leased to, who knows, but it will create more jobs than were there previously and will be a more sustainable facility for the town to create revenue off.
Okay, unfortunately, I think that is all the time that we have. I would love to hear more about everybody's projects, but we are on a strict schedule. So everybody, please give a round of applause to our panel.
Let's give that panel another round of applause. And this brings us to our last panel today, and I would like to welcome George DeStefani, the president of the New Jersey region of Ocean First Bank, to the stage to present panel 3. George? The stage is yours.
Thank you, Abby. I have to tell you, I was a little bit nervous about being the third panel's discussion person up. I figured by that time people would want to go restroom, coffee, and it'd be an empty room. So I'm glad to see that some of you hung around, so thank you. On behalf of Ocean First, we're pleased to be part of Invest North and Central New Jersey's Leadership Summit. Thank you for the commitment to the area, particularly the business community, and thank you for the in-depth reports that showcase our economy, and lastly, for the events that bring leaders together. Now, we talk about innovation all the time. Innovation is a topic that's at the forefront, not only of Ocean First and the banking industry, but of every industry. So I've got the good fortune of being a banker. You don't probably hear that very often, but as a banker, we get access to be able to go out and tour facilities in the state. So I've had the opportunity to be in distribution centers that these gentlemen just talked about, manufacturing facilities, and you see all types of innovation in these places. So some of the innovation, I was in a distribution center in the last couple of months or so, and companies are starting to use autonomous robotics, right? So autonomous robotics sounded like something you'd use in a lab, 30 days ago, but it's something that's being deployed now in distribution facilities, right? So these are the autonomous robotics. In this case, was a cart that has the ability to follow a warehouse worker around without the need of wires or rails or any of those things. So what does it do? It increases the productivity of the folks in the warehouse, allows them to get bigger loads, move around, keep hands free. So it creates safety and it creates higher efficiencies as they're moving around. I was in another facility where it was a manufacturer, and the manufacturer was employing autonomous forklifts. That was the first time I had seen that. The forklifts had the ability to go and pull pallets off of shelves, work on a computer command, and load them into the back of trailers. Right? It makes efficiencies for the manufacturer, and at the same time allows workers to do higher level productivity work. So this innovation happens everywhere. It's not just here in this community, but also in the manufacturing community and elsewhere. So innovation is an important part of Ocean First, and I'll tell you, it's even part of our mission statement, which in part says, by providing innovative products backed by outstanding service, we'll achieve our vision of enhancing our commitment and responsiveness to the markets, customers, and team members we serve. I had to write that one down. I don't have it memorized. So let's talk about innovation for us, which means continually adding value to our customers' experience. We do that by designing and evolving products and technologies that follow our customers' expectations. I say that because it's important, right? We're not changing the way that people bank. People are changing the way they bank, and we're trying to make sure we're following our customer preference. So what does that mean? That means for us that we have to take a look at how customers are banking with us. And today that means they're using branches less. So if they're using branches less and using things like digital technologies to do more routine transactions, we have to have the infrastructure in order to be able to do that. So we have to optimize our branch network, but that doesn't mean reducing headcount. That means creating cost saves, reinvesting that in other areas, and then redeploying our staff. As everyone in this room will probably attest, employment is tough. It's a challenge. So we need to make sure we're utilizing every one of our folks. So we invest in technologies like our call center. We just built an 80,000 square foot campus expansion in our Toms River headquarters. That expansion will house people like our call centers and our remote deposit operations area. And the remote deposit operations, if you think about innovation there, we use interactive teller machines. So you walk up to a machine, mostly in the drive-thrus, you can hit a button and a live person comes up on that screen. That live person may be 3 counties over, but that live person is the person that's transacting with you. So if you think about that, that person can interact in Ocean County, Middlesex County, wherever, and do it all efficiently from one area while deploying this technology. We've also invested in a wealth management platform. This one I really like because it creates access for people for wealth management, accessibility across anything. You can access it through your computer, through your phone, and anytime and anywhere that you want to. And the barriers to entry there are really low. So for folks that don't have the ability to go up market to the real big investment houses, it gives people access to that type of investment, customized with interactive people. So what I would tell you is innovation, evaluation, execution, and adoption. Now, of course, we're not alone in the banking industry. It needs to be in the forefront of this innovation to stay competitive and to exceed customer expectation. All this has been an effort to stay up to date with the ever-changing landscape of innovation, and we're dedicating a tremendous amount of our resources to ensure our success in front and moving forward. This will be a constant battle for all of us, but perhaps our upcoming panel can help us guide us towards success. Now, with that, I'll turn it over to Abby Malone, who will be moderating our third panel, which is Harnessing Innovation, How Institutions and Organizations are Adapting to Today's Innovative Landscape. Thank you. Abby?
I'm back. And this time I'll sit down for a little bit. Let me please welcome my panelists to the stage. Can Marcus Randolph from Invest Newark please join me? Jean Waddy from Alpha Business Solutions, and Avis Yates River from Technology Concepts Group International. Please welcome my panelists to the stage. Excellent. So we're going to be talking about innovation, which I think obviously has always been important to business for as long as anyone can remember, but has been particularly important over the past couple years. The pandemic has forced us to innovate. And this discussion is going to not be that typical innovate technology discussion, because I think that's where usually our brains go towards. Innovation means technology. But I think one simple example of how we had to innovate as a society was working from home over these past couple years. And I think the past couple years, we can all agree, has really shaped us now in this post-pandemic climate and moving forward. So I have some really wonderful panelists from different career paths, different backgrounds, but have all been pushed to the test to innovate these past couple of years, and should hopefully help guide us towards innovation moving forward. So I'd like to look back first at these past couple of years as we kick off our discussion. And so to all, as we start off, can you give a quick definition of what innovation means to you and your organization, as well as its significance to staying competitive in this post-pandemic landscape? Marcus, can I start with you? Oh.
First test. Okay. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Marcus Randolph from Invest Newark. We are the City of Newark's Economic Development Corporation. You may know us in previous iterations as Newark Community Economic Development Corporation or Brick City Community Development Corporation, but we are now known as Invest Newark, and I love the name, and there's so much talk today that it was mentioned to me in passing that this conference should be in Newark next year, Invest in Newark next year.
I don't disagree.
Just a little plug. And I have some of my wonderful staff with me as well. So when I think about innovation as it pertains to us, I mean, we all know that innovation is a key economic driver.
and being here at Invest Newark now for just a couple of months. But one of the things that we're really working on is, how do we support high-tech companies? How can we innovate? Our client base is really, the people who live and work in the city of Newark. So we're looking to innovate all the time. One of the things that we're doing now is we're looking at all of our websites, social media, technology. What the pandemic has done, like everybody else, it's made people really be more reliant on tech. And we get phone calls every day from people who don't want to do that. And so we're like, but this is how it works now. And so we need to be responsive to that, but we are still very committed to the fact that that's how we're doing business now. But we're going to be continuing to look for ways to support new companies coming in. Newark is really trying to turn the page from brick city to tech city, become an innovation economy. And I can chat probably for a very long time about that, about some of the things that we have going on. But just in summary, that's sort of what it means for us.
Excellent. Avis, how about yourself? How would you define innovation for yourself and your company? And what does that mean today for you?
Sure, happy to, and so glad to be here, Abby. Thanks for having me. So I am Avis Yates Rivers. I am a founder, a tech founder, have been for a long time, and over the last years, you fill in the blank. I was talking to my 35-year-old son this morning, and I said, oh, you're catching up to me, because I'm 39. I don't know what you're going to do when you pass me like your sister, but I'm staying put. Anyway, I digress. So I have been a tech founder and CEO for a long time. And over those years, we've had to innovate or die. There's no such thing as stagnation when you are in the tech industry or when you're in business, period. If you're not innovating and growing, you're dying, you're stagnating, you're moving back, and your competitors will take full advantage of that. In my mind, innovation is anything that helps you to improve upon the way you're doing things today or in the past. Everyone thinks about innovation as the next big thing, new, and I guess Apple CEOs have drummed that into our heads, the next big thing. Yes, that is also innovation. I heard a lot of innovation on the healthcare panel today, how hospitals are even being retrofitted to be able to treat patients more efficiently. It's creating better and greater efficiencies in the way you go to market, in the way you do business, in the way you do finance. I had to get some papers notarized just a couple of weeks ago. I had to physically go to the bank. I'm like, wow, who does this anymore? And it was basically empty. I don't know how long, Mr. Ocean first, I don't know how long banks are going to be brick and mortar and not just online only, but we've had to continually look at ways to improve upon our processes, especially in the light of the pandemic, where business is done totally different, and hopefully we'll get into a little bit of that conversation. So it's either creating something new or improving the way you're doing things already.
Absolutely. And Gene?
Hopefully I got the good mic. Gene Wadi, CEO of Alpha Business Solutions. Been in the IT staffing payroll space for 17 years. And I'm getting older and Avis is getting younger. I don't know how that's happening, but it's great to be here, Abby. Thanks for having me. So innovation, to me, it's really about changing the way you do things and the way that you think in pursuit of better results, right? Whether it's for yourself personally or for your business or for your community. One thing I have learned in 17 years in business, having my own business, and 54 years on the earth, is that there are no sacred cows. Everything changes. When you wake up in the morning, your world is different than it was yesterday. It may not seem that way, but it is. And that is what drives business forward, is being ahead of that change. And the challenge is the rate of change has increased exponentially from generations past, right? Think about it. Talk about Apple. How many of you have to change you feel like you have this passion, you have to change your Apple phone every year? Why? Because you feel it's obsolete. It's changing. I got to get the newest thing, right? That's how we all look at day to day. Everything is in motion and the rate of change is increasing. So, as an entrepreneur, like you said, if you're not changing, you're dying. There's another Gene Waddy or another Avis Sheets creeping up behind you because you think that the way that you do things is the way it's always going to be. And that is absolutely not the case. So thank you for the question.
When all three of you were talking, I was thinking about what has changed individually for all of us over the pandemic. I'm sure there's things that we are personally doing very different, but also businesses doing very differently. Yeah. Marcus, you mentioned that social media has changed a lot for Invest Newark over the past couple of years. What have been some of the innovations that you've experienced over the past 2 years that you see continuing forward? Like, for example, more emphasis on social media, more emphasis on communication. Marcus, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, obviously, we're all had to quickly learn how to use Zoom, all the other ones, right? And we kind of thought, well, I have to use this for a little while because in about 6 months, I'm going back to work. Well, that was like 2 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. And so then we're sort of trying to figure out, well, are we going to use it at work? It's just here. It's here to stay. Some meetings will be on Zoom or whatever your, services that you're using. Some are going to be in person. I just see that's just going to be the way that we do things. I certainly have my fair share of Zoom meetings, which is great. And honestly, I get it. Some people are like, you'll have a better chance of having me show up for this, whatever meeting it is, if I can just sit at home and have my glass of wine to the side where nobody can see me, but I'm on this Zoom call. It's reality. I think that, well, as they say, it's noon somewhere.
5 p.m.
I'm just saying. Yes. And another thing that I personally picked up on from some younger people, like you said, there's always someone behind you with a better idea. And I was talking to some young folks, and they said, well, why don't you consider having a QR code? I said, I don't even know what you're talking about. And so it's really simple, right? You put it on this card, you give the card to people, and boom, there's all this information. I love that, right? Also something that's here to stay. So the whole idea of oh, let me give you this handout. Let me give you, just scan this QR code. That's something that's here to stay. There's actually one other thing too that I had in my notes here. Well, I'll just say this. I do think that, as we sort of figure out what stays and what doesn't, or sort of what's the hybrid, I think we also sort of figuring out how do you sort of replace the water cooler talk. You pick up a lot of stuff, right? When you show up in the office, you stop by, and you say, hey, we know what you do this weekend. They tell you what they did, and they say, and that you also know, right? You find out this information. And so we got to sort of figure that piece out too. How do we get the right level of actual physical interaction? But our reliance on tech, I just don't see it going anywhere.
You mentioned the physical interaction. I think of staffing. Staffing firms prior were doing a lot of in-person interviews, obviously, to send their clients to the potential interviewees to their clients' offices, and that has all drastically changed. What has the pandemic taught you? How have you altered the way that you find and connect people?
So that's a great question. So again, I grew up in the staffing industry, and I'm dating myself, but I can remember when you had to take the resume physically to the client's office.
Wow.
Or fax it. And when I say
fax, he said
it
fax.
wasn't one of those scan faxes. It was the kind with the thermal paper. It would curl up. Yes. Remember that? Okay.
I sold those.
See,
I sold.
There you go. The younger folks are looking at us like, oh man, how long have you guys been around? But the staffing industry has changed immensely because of all the technology that's going on. So now we do interviews by video conference. I used to think doing a phone screen was innovative. Now it's video conferencing, doing all sorts of AI type of interactions, and we can screen out candidates automatically, right? And again, it's the rate of change. What you think today is cool and cutting edge, next year is obsolete, right? And as a CEO, I've learned something, right? You always have people on the boat that are smarter than you, and in most cases, a little bit younger. So my team is here, the Alpha team, the A team, we call ourselves. Our marketing people are here, whatever. And Andrea Cookhorn is our marketing director. And I call her the tools lady because what she does is she shows me the latest tools that I should be implementing. So brother, when you said QR code, and I'm like, don't know what that is. These folks, they're the ones that do. And they keep me current. Because what I do and what Avis, we all do it, this is timeless. Face-to-face interaction, that's always going to be with us. That doesn't mean you can't do things differently and do things better.
I don't know, that metaverse scares me. I do like in person. Avis, you have traditionally been in the technology environment and always chasing that feeling of not being obsolete, right? Technology is constantly in that race. What did the pandemic do to that race? What was the most profound change that you experienced in the way that you operate the past couple of years?
You know, even as a technology company, we have had to really rethink how we do business technologically. And so, yes, we support customers in their need for technology, assessing what that is, providing it, whether it's hardware, software services for the data center, for the network, for the cloud, cybersecurity. But we had to really take a step back and decide who are we going to be now and how are we going to be able to better service clients. And so when the pandemic first struck, I thought, I've always, like for the last umpteen years, looking for opportunities to say, that's it. I'm gonna turn the key and I'm gonna become a golf pro, Tim, or a beach bum. I don't care which one, but I thought, that's it for me. You know, the world has shut down. That's my sign. Thank you, Lord. It's time to go do something else. But after my week and a half pity party, I got out of the fetal position and decided that we were going to adopt a growth mode. And so we went to the big boys, like the big companies do, to look for a new ERP system, enterprise resource planning system, that can become our single source of truth from initial customer requests, quotes, et cetera, through the transaction process of getting it and into the back end of finance and accounting and paying for stuff. And so I leveraged an Oracle Cloud solution for small and medium-sized businesses. And I hired a CFO, Michael's in the room, Michael Berger, sight unseen, because he had experience with this system, and gave him the responsibility of implementing it, getting all the team members remotely on board with it, and helping us understand how this new single source of truth technology is going to help us increase our efficiency and drive cost out of the way we used to do business. So for us, I guess it was just a natural inclination to look to technology. And that was just the first piece. We have bolted on a lot of other pieces of technology that is helpful for us internally, but it's also helpful to our customers to drive cost out of our solutions to them.
Absolutely. Shifting gears a little bit, Marcus, part of your mission is ensuring Newark can lead the 21st century economy. What steps is Invest Newark taking to bring this vision to fruition in today's evolving landscape of innovation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. That's another good question. There's a few things that we're doing. I just touch on very quickly. So one of them is a business we call Newark Fiber, which is in growth mode. But I don't know if you know this, Newark is one of the few municipalities in the country that actually owns its own dark fiber. Don't want to get real technical, but it owns its own fiber, which allows us to then provide reliable broadband at a very reasonable cost to Newark's community. We're at this point at a juncture where the mayor has tasked us to make this available to the residents of Newark and to do it quickly. And we're trying to define what quickly really means, but ultimately it needs to be also very reliable. But I think that certainly what we learned during the pandemic was really driven home is the need for everybody to have reliable access. It was mentioned earlier about people, telehealth, and being educated and working, and so you need that capability. We also are revamping our business development strategy, I mentioned earlier that we want to support high-tech companies, but we really want to get back into the business of business attraction into the city of Newark, which also brings jobs. And then the last piece, and it also ties together, is our real estate development platform. Some of you may know that, speaking of innovation, not tech innovation, but we have a land bank. We're the only land bank in the state. But it's one of the keys to sort of unlocking real estate development. And I think that that's going to produce other opportunities for us, which, as Ed Russo mentioned, and now people are home more, they're doing more, so they need not only a place to live, but sometimes a place to live and work in their city.
Can you share a success story from the land bank?
Yeah, sure. There's quite a few, but one I'll mention. So we had a little pushback from a commercial property owner that did not want us to, well, he didn't want to install Newark fiber. He didn't want to pay for the cost. So we said, well, that's fine. But some of his tenants really wanted to use Newark fiber. So we said that we would do the installation, and he was fine with that, as long as he didn't have to pay for it. So we were happy to do that. Many of his tenants are now using Newark fiber, but one success story in particular, there's a gentleman that owns a fitness company. And so by using Newark fiber, he's able to stream his sessions, which he could not do previously. And so that's just to me, that was a very easy, simple win, but look at the outcome. He's able to make it through the pandemic.
Absolutely. And Avis, looking at today's landscape through the lens of your experience within the information technology industry, what are the opportunities within the business community for further efficiencies and improvements from a technology perspective?
Thank you for the question, Abby. I think we need to look and be really focused on what is the data telling you. However you're doing business, whatever kind of business you're doing, there's data being generated around that. And so many of our systems today, and to be continued into the future, are really going to be data-driven. And so we have established a much stronger pool of data scientists. And whatever we're doing with our customers, we want to assess, what does your historical data tell us? We let the data speak to us because it knows better, than what other folks might have bits and pieces of the information, but the data tells the whole story. The data then will also allow artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies to really help drive the direction that customers and systems should go to. We find that there's a lot more emphasis on centers of excellence, right? So it's a more centralized approach to a business function. We own a procurement center of excellence where we help our customers who have requests for ongoing technology services, engineering, professional services, technical services, to enter into our center of excellence and allow us to help them source that from other suppliers who may not be able to do business with them directly, but we are of a size that we support Fortune 100, 500 corporations in multiple industries around the world. And so we're able to leverage our resources, our partners, our ecosystem in a center of excellence that drives efficiencies and cost and risk out. And so data is what allows us to do that. And data is what allows our customers to better understand the impact of their actions and their processes and their systems. Because you want the machines to continually learn how to improve what you're doing. Because as it improves what you're doing, your costs and risks will drop out and more will drop to the bottom line. And so to me, the key is, what is the information telling you? And how can we get systems to decipher that information a little bit more automatically? Sure. We call them bots, right? So that they can then provide the rote, repetitive functions as opposed to people doing that. And people can be focused more on the more strategic versus the tactical.
And do you have any cautionary tales from mistakes that you've seen clients make that we can learn from?
Oh, yeah. Well, how much time we have? When, we have access to many companies' data. It's procurement data, so it's not like HIPAA data, or privacy, healthcare data. But it's interesting how many companies, as we're doing insights and presentations and sharing them, what we see there often, the words that we hear back is, wow, I didn't know that, right? Because they're so busy doing the work, they don't have the time, they don't have the resources and the bandwidth and the capacity, or maybe even the skills and the tool set to look holistically at what the information is telling us and how they can use that to redirect how they do business.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And Jean, Alpha Business Solutions offers a variety of diversity programs that help organizations and companies to achieve diversity goals and spending objectives. What are some innovative ways you're helping organizations promote diversity throughout the workplace?
That's a great question. So we've talked a lot today about the impact of the pandemic, right? So we talked about COVID-19, in March or February of 2020. Right? Slammed into the East Coast, being in New York, it was a big thing, we got shut down. But what people often forget, there was another seminal moment that year that also changed our lives, and that was the murder of George Floyd. That was in May. So think about that. The way we work changed, everything is shut down, and then we saw one of the most brutal scenes most of us have seen in our lives unfold in front of us, and guess what? We were stuck in the house for another 2 years thinking about it. That collision, that paradigm forced Alpha to innovate our thinking and the way we do business. Our customers turned around and said, we need help. We have now had to transcend from a office-based way of doing business to remote. Some of our biggest customers are schools, universities, right? Not necessarily always the hotbed of IT and technology. Now their staff is at home. They've got now short-term temporary professors all over the country that have to be managed and paid effectively. That's what Alpha does for a living in payroll. But there's another aspect of it. Some of those same institutions, we're talking about school districts to some of the largest university systems in the country, said, we also need diverse staff. Can you help us? So, right? So we have to think innovatively to say, well, wait a minute, not only can we manage your remote workforce, we'll pay them, we'll put them on our payroll, so now they're my problem, not your problem. You focus on teaching the kids, teaching the students, we'll make sure they get paid, we take care of the tax deductions, benefits, and so forth. And oh, by the way, Mr. Customer, we also grew up in the staffing business, and now that you're looking for remote talent, you can hire people that look like us wherever they live, regardless of where your headquarters is. Even Alpha took advantage of that. The folks that you see sitting at our table, guess what? They don't live in Red Bank, New Jersey. I feel kind of sorry for them, but Andrea lives in Miami, so I don't feel sorry for her. But
exactly.
My point
I
is
got
that
you, girl.
innovation sometimes happens. You get knocked upside the head, and you have to react. And that's what happened. I'm not a Steve Jobs just sitting around like a vision came to me and said, I'm going to create the iPhone. That's not what happened. COVID hit us upside the head, and then George Floyd hit us upside the head, and we said, oh man, we got a choice to make. Either we change or we're going to go out of business. And Avis, I know you're going to agree with this. We all know folks who did not make it in business. I'm not talking about just people that we lost in the pandemic, which that's just a sad topic. I don't even want to get into it. But what was also sad is a lot of our peers in the diversity business arena did not make it through. Gone. Some of them were gobbled up by bigger businesses. Some just disappeared. And they're not, and it's going to take us generations to rebuild some of that. So I'm glad you stayed in the game.
Me too.
Right? And I stayed in the game, and we supported one another. We called one another. You all right? You okay? Can I help you in any way? That's another thing that happened. It wasn't just dollars and cents. It was about survival. Right? And that changed me for life. I'm a different person now. The way I do business, it's not just about getting every dime into place. It's about taking care of one another. Because we all learned that tomorrow is not promised. You can't get too enamored with the way you do things and how you're doing and what your bank account is all about. Because you heard it, the mayor and everybody that's building the state, we are tied together.
Oh, yeah, I joked
Right.
about being in the pity party in the fetal
That's
position.
right.
That wasn't a joke.
Everybody did.
It wasn't a joke.
And we checked in on each other. All right, now come on, we're gonna get up out of that fetal position and go do some business. And for people like Avis and myself and others who are relationship salespeople, you want to talk about having to adapt. We had to make sure that personality that you see right in person comes across on that screen. And that is not as easy as you think. When the dog is running in and UPS man's knocking on the door and the
Baby's
cat's
calling in
walking
the
across the
background.
keyboard and you're like,
Yep.
you know, you're killing me here, right? But we made it. We sure did.
The other thing I think about when I think of diversity is diversity leads to innovation. The more diverse the company is, the more possibilities for innovation.
Amen.
And so it just completely connects. Well, we're running short on time, so I want to ask another question for all of my panelists to answer. Given the new modalities of working and doing business, what do leaders need to unlearn to ensure innovation success moving forward? We have a lot of leaders in this room, a lot of leaders that are watching us via YouTube right now. We are live streaming. Sometimes leaders often are the ones that break barriers. They're the ones that find new solutions. But as leaders, we often get stuck in our ways. What do we need to unlearn? Who would like to go first? Marcus.
Well, it's sort of been touched on already, but I'll just say, the days of people having to put in FaceTime in the office is over. You're not going to hire the top talent if they come to the interview and find that you really expect them to be there 5 days a week. Now, my office, we are there 5 days a week, hint, hint, wink, wink kind of thing. We have tremendous flexibility. I don't have an option. I need the flexibility, and I know that my staff does as well. And the other thing I just say is, even if you think of yourself as just sort of a little local business, you're part now of a much bigger ecosystem. George has an employee who lives in Miami. A business partner of mine has an employee that lives in Los Angeles, and he's in Newark. That's how people are thinking of business now. That's now your pool of talent. They're everywhere.
And I agree with that, Marcus. In fact, I moved out. I live in Hilton Head, Savannah region now, right? We were like,
Flew in just for the event. Thank you very much.
I flew up just for you, Abby. But and my VP of marketing moved to Sarasota, Florida last year. So it allows this whole unlearning. I had to do it myself. I have always had an office. And so when our lease expired last year, I was dead set on, okay, where we're going. Michael, start looking, because I was in South Carolina. Michael, start looking, where are we going? And he kept saying, Avis, why? Why? You've been paying rent for the last year and a half, and nobody's been in this office. What do you think is going to be different about the next office? But I've always had an office in New Jersey, always. That was something I had to unlearn. Knowing how I work, we're empty nesters. People come down to vacation, but they're not there every day. And hubby, he self-maintained and entertained. So what am I going to do but work? Because that's my life and that's what I enjoy. I will send emails and texts out any given night, weekends, and crazy folks like Michael, they respond. I'm like, you don't have to respond. So it's unlearning old behavior and recognizing that we are all in a new work modality. I would also say we have to unlearn this concept of mirroring when we're adding staff, people who look like us, and that's all of us, right? I foster diversity in everything that we do, but it's not just diversity for numbers' sake. It's diversity for innovation's sake. Diverse voices and talents and skill sets and experiences and approaches to problem solving helps come up with different solutions, more innovative, more financially beneficial as well. And so what we've done is we have decided that we're going to take an active role in ensuring the creation of the next generation of diverse tech talent. And so we've launched our foundation, the TCGI Foundation, and we have now begun giving scholarships out to break down barriers for Black girls in tech and women. which is what necessary inclusion, my book is all about. We need to do that for innovation's sake, but also to know that there's going to be folks that we can all employ in the coming year, 2, 5, 10 years. We have to take an active role in the development of that talent. And I was so delighted to hear that that's going on still here in New Brunswick and Central Jersey. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely.
So,
Gene?
Yeah, really quickly. So one of the things I had to unlearn was that, prior to being a CEO, 17 years ago, I always had a vision of a CEO as somebody that was like kind of like stern and mean. If you don't do what I tell you, I'll fire you. And you judge your success by the P&L and the balance sheet, right? And if it wasn't what you said it was, everybody was terrible and life was horrible and you guys are not doing the work and you need to work harder and all that stuff. I had to unlearn that mindset because up until COVID hit, you still kind of said, well, look at the numbers. Okay, numbers are good, we're successful. Not necessarily. What COVID taught me was it's professional and it's also personal. And everybody on this, my team, they know I drill this into their head. Work-life balance matters. I cannot consider myself a successful leader if the gross profit's going like this, but my workforce and their outlook on life and how they feel is going like this. They're not present. If they're not feeling fulfilled and they're not happy with what they're doing, they're not working as hard as they could be. They're not happy. And what COVID taught me was that there is a point on the curve, it's my engineering mindset, right? It creeps in. There's a point on the curve where all that stuff balances out. If you just give people the feeling that you trust them to do what's right. You work from home? Yeah, I can tell if you're working. The numbers will bear it out. But I will also know by your attitude and how you show up and how you present yourself. If you're a working mom, and I'm proud to say 73% of my leadership in my firm are women, and diverse women at that. It's true. And that's by design. That's not by accident. But I will tell you something. If the baby has a fever, and in the old world order, well, you better have your brother to work at 8 o'clock. I don't care if your child has a fever or not. That was the mindset back in the day. Oh, no more of that. Because guess what? When she or he comes in that office and that child is sick, do you honestly think that they're thinking about alpha? They're not. They're thinking about their child. So put them in a position where they can do what they feel, what's right. And guess what? They will reward you. They will log in earlier. They'll come back. They will work all night. You talked about those weekend texts. I'm always telling them, look, y'all, come on. You don't have to. It's 2 in the morning. I got my own issues. But y'all don't have to answer. It gets right, but you got to get it out quick because I'm getting old and I'll forget. But I know you're not. But I'm serious when I say this. That work-life balance matters, and you will become a more profitable company. You really will. If you put people in that position, because I can remember working for an ogres back in the day. I was afraid of my bosses. I didn't like them. I didn't even think they were that competent in some cases. And I said to myself, one day, if I get to run a business, I'm not going to do that. Yes. And I'm very happy to say that I'm not. Yeah. But I had to unlearn that whole mindset of, if the numbers aren't good, everybody here is worthless. Mm-hmm. No, that's not it. Innovate, change, and trust the people. Exactly. Hire the best people and get out of the way. Yep. It's hard sometimes for a personality to do it. But that's the innovation. That's what I learned and unlearned at the same time. And I'm still learning. So that's what we have to deal with nowadays, right? The rate of change, putting the right people on the bus and letting them drive sometimes. But that's what it's all about. So thank you. That was a fantastic question.
Well, I think that was also a fantastic answer. And please give another round of applause to my panel 3. Thank you, Gene. Thank you, Avis. Thank you, Marcus, for your wonderful comments. And we're just going to steal you for one picture.
Thank you, panelists. What a way to conclude our event. Let's give them another round of applause. Well, good afternoon, everyone. For all of those that I haven't met in the course of New Jersey's research activities, my name is Victoria Cepeda. I'm Executive Director at Invest North and Central Jersey and Invest South Jersey. And for those that I have met, thank you again. It has been a pleasure to work with you in the inaugural edition of our business report. When I started this report at the end of 2021, being a Colombian native, I was not so familiar with North Jersey's economy. Obviously, as is probably with most foreigners, I have been to New York a number of times. But what I can tell you is that from the first moment, the wonderful people of North and Central Jersey opened up their arms to the true colors of this business community and the outstanding business opportunities in across the board sectors such as healthcare, life sciences, real estate, education, and even innovation. And now I can firmly attest that the Big Apple doesn't have anything in the Garden State. Thanks again for the amazing leaders who I met with during this journey while putting together this report, who were incredibly supportive and excited about our work. I am humbled by what we have been able to create and accomplish with this North and Central Jersey business community, and I cannot wait to start working on next year's edition. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me to recommend interviewees for the update. I would also like to express the incredible audience we have today with our over 300 registered attendees. I think it speaks not only to the necessity of what we do now more than ever, business intelligence, to attract and promote investments and business to the North and Central Jersey region, but it also speaks to the character of this business community. A community that leans in, rises above, and strives for more. I would like to thank our incredible sponsors for making today possible. Our gold sponsors, United Healthcare, Alpha Business Solutions, Newark Symphony Hall. Silver sponsors, Jersey Central Power Light, Ocean First Bank, USA Architects. And our honor sponsors, Blank Rome, Genmab, Greek Development, and Scarinci Hollenbeck. As you leave, please make sure to get your complimentary copy of the Invest North and Central Jersey 2022 book. Feedback is welcome. You can write to me at bcepeda@capitalaa.com or to contact@capitalaa.com. Last but not least, while North and Central Jersey might be newly released, we have already started the update to Invest South Jersey. Mark your calendars for the Leadership Summit on November 17th at the DoubleTree by Hilton, Cherry Hill. It is sure to be a great event. And once again, thank you for joining us today, especially to our keynotes, our presenters, our moderators and panelists for your insightful words, and our sponsors for supporting our efforts. Thank you and have a pleasant afternoon.